Hey guys, in this video, I want to talk to you about the 5 don'ts every first-time buyer should keep in mind. Number 1, don't look for perfection. If you're looking for the perfect home, you might end up looking for quite a while. First of all, there is no such thing. Even newly built, custom designed homes are not going to be perfect. And especially in our market, when you're looking at existing homes in North Jersey, most of them are going to be 50 to 100 years old. Some are even older. Victorian homes from the late 19th century. How can you possibly find perfection in homes that are a century old or even half a century old? My advice to you is instead, look for a home that checks off all of the important boxes for you, or at least most of them. Look for a home that's 80% or 90% what you're looking for. And maybe the other 10 or 20% you could fix, you could improve on after you close. And guess what? The closer the home comes to perfect in your mind, chances are it's also close to perfect in many other buyers' minds. So you're likely to get into a very competitive situation the closer a home is to quote unquote perfect. Which brings me to my second point. Don't get stuck on the list price. I hear this once in a while. We will not pay above asking. Why? Is it a mental block? What is it about the asking price? Is it a magic number? A lot of times, it's fairly arbitrary. As a realtor, I know this for a fact, having been on the listing side numerous times. We are essentially taking educated guesses. We're looking at comps, we're making adjustments for the specific property, location, condition, size, layout, but ultimately, the asking price could also be a marketing tactic. A lot of agents use list price as a way to generate a bidding war. So if you're serious about buying your first property or your next home, and you're stuck on not going above asking, you might be limiting your ability to close on a home because the asking price in some cases could simply be one of the many marketing tools the listing agent is using. So instead of focusing on list price, focus on what you can afford and what you think that particular home is worth to you. Look at your expected monthly payment. Calculate your principal and interest payment. You could speak to your lender about the prevailing mortgage rate or even speak to your agent. Calculate your estimated home insurance cost per year, the taxes, and then look at your monthly budget, add utilities to it. Can we afford this place? And then play around with the price. If it's 10 or 20K higher, can you still afford it? What's your maximum for the particular house? That is a much better way of thinking about it than just focusing on the list price. And the third point is, if you're lucky enough to get an accepted offer and get it under contract, one of the first things you're going to have to do is schedule the home inspection. A very, very important don't is don't invite the whole family to the home inspection. The only people that should be at the home inspection are the professional home inspector that you're hiring, you, the buyer, if it's a couple, I would encourage both of you to attend, and your real estate agent, your buyer's agent. Those are really the only people that should be there. Sometimes you might have multiple inspectors. Somebody might be doing an oil tank sweep outside. Somebody else might be doing a sewer scope. And maybe you have the regular home inspector checking, the HVAC and the electricity, the plumbing, opening and closing windows. So you might have multiple inspectors, but you definitely do not want to invite the whole family. You don't need your uncle there. You don't need your cousin there. You don't need grandpa there because grandpa was a contractor for 40 years. There is a time and place for that. But the home inspection is not that time. And here's the main reason. The reason why it's important for you to be there as the buyer is because you want to follow the inspector and listen to the inspector because they'll point things out as they go along, if they're good. And you want to hear it firsthand because the way they phrase things in the report is going to be very different than what they tell you verbally. So you want to be present, you want to ask them for a verbal summary of main issues afterwards at the end. And having a lot of people there will simply be distracting. Not only will it be distracting for you, the potential buyer, because you're not really listening and paying attention to the inspector as much, it's also going to be distracting to your home inspector who you're paying to do a job, right? And imagine if there's like 4 or 5 relatives milling around, they're going to be in his way or her way. So that's the next don't. Point number 4, don't skimp on home insurance. There are plenty of ways to save when buying a home, but home insurance should not be a source of looking for savings. You want to protect yourself, especially when for most people, their primary residence is their biggest asset. So, it's not like you're shopping for a flat screen TV or even for a car where you're picking different trims, right? You're buying a home and you want to make sure that you're protected if something bad happens. No one thinks about worst case scenarios when buying a home, but that's why insurance is there to cover you for the things that you don't plan for, things you don't expect to happen, because bad stuff happens. And usually it's at a time when we least expect it, right? And certainly not something we can predict. So you want to make sure that your most important asset is properly covered. First of all, arm yourself with information, and that usually means talking to a professional and experienced insurance agent or broker. And then talk to that agent about the property you're buying, your priorities, and balance cost with coverage. You don't want to get the cheapest policy that doesn't provide you the coverage you need if something bad happens, right? So you want to balance how much it's going to cost you versus how much protection it's actually going to offer you. So that's an important point to keep in mind. And the last don't is don't buy a home with your last dollar. You don't want to stretch to the point where you're literally looking for the last couple of $1,000s to put together so you have enough money for the down payment and closing costs. You want to be able to close with enough peace of mind to know that you have a financial cushion or an emergency fund for the inevitable break or the inevitable improvement or repair you have to make. And it usually happens when you're not really budgeting for it, right? So make sure you have money set aside for annual maintenance, cleaning the gutters, maybe servicing the HVAC system or boiler. You might have a leak, right? Something might break, a pipe bursts, especially with older houses, and you might have a leak and suddenly you have plumbing repair and you have drywall repair and painting you need to do, and it might cost you thousands of dollars. Your water heater might go bust. They have an average lifespan of 10 to 12 years, and it might cost you $1,500 to $2,000 to get it replaced. You don't want to be barely eking out a closing and not have any money left over in the bank. So always budget for the unexpected, and you should have some money definitely set aside for reserves for not just annual maintenance, but for things that come up suddenly that require thousands of dollars in repairs. And obviously home insurance goes hand in hand with that, but certain things are not really insurance claims. They're simply old stuff that breaks around the house, right? So that was point number 5. And point number 6, which is really a bonus point since I don't want to change the title of this video. The bonus point is don't make important financial decisions while you're under contract. Here are a couple that come to mind. 1, don't quit your job if you haven't closed on your home. That can completely mess up the mortgage underwriting process because the lender is going to call your employer to verify that you're still employed, and they usually do it like the day before closing. So don't, even if you had an argument with your boss, don't storm into his or her office and say, I quit, because you may not end up closing on your home. And on a related note, don't go out and open a new line of credit or finance a new vehicle. Anything that might make a dent on your financial situation, hurt your credit score, change your debt-to-income ratio, you're risking the mortgage not getting approved, and you don't want to take that risk. So just wait. You might be a month away from closing. Wait a month before you finance a new vehicle. If you hate your job and you're planning to do a job switch, wait a month, right? It can wait, especially if you really like this home and you want to close on it. So that was a bonus point for you. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you'll tune in for the next one. Take care.